Kleptomancy, yes. Biscuit Delivery or Zhonya's, this Zhonya's passive thing. If you're against a Zed or if you're top lane expecting to be tower dove. On average, like every game, I prefer the free boots. Because I don't usually end up upgrading my boots, so I just get free 300 gold right there. Cosmic Insight, no other option. You have to take Transcendence and Scorch. This is what I usually run. So this is what I typically run right now. This is my page that I've been testing out so far. So Kleptomancy, of course. Then we go Biscuit Delivery. Now, a lot of the options that you get in the mastery pages can be a toss-up between what... It depends on what you're going to be laning against. So, if I were a mid laner and I were against a Zed, instead of taking Biscuit Delivery, I would go Perfect Timing. So, you'd have a Zhonya's active at least once that you could use, and that you could also, let's say you're against a Zed. So you could build maybe 3rd or 4th item GA, and this will give you a lower cooldown on the GA, because it reduces cooldown by like 15%, so that's good. But importantly, once you hit, I think, around level 6, when do people hit level 6? Around maybe like 5 or 6 minutes. That's when you get a stopwatch. So it'll be useful against a Zed mid lane. So but usually I'd go with Biscuit Delivery, but if I were against a Zed, or someone with a telegraphed ultimate, I'd go Perfect Timing, or instead of going Biscuit Delivery, you can go Perfect Timing in the top lane if you expect to be tower dove in the top lane, which is quite useful, because this will give you about, how long is Zhonya's? I think 2 seconds active stasis. So if someone tries tower diving you in the top lane, if you think you're going to get tower dove in the top lane, so if you're against a Renekton top and an Elise jungle, there's a chance that they're going to tower dive you, so it might be a good idea to go with Perfect Timing. For the third option here, it's a toss-up between two options. You have Magical Footwear and Futures Market. Now I've watched LS's his rune rundown for each champion. He really likes Futures Market. One thing it doesn't mention here in Futures Market, but it does on the LoL wiki, is that it doesn't cost you 50 gold, a lending fee. For the first time you use Futures Market, it doesn't cost an extra 50 gold. So essentially you can buy an item 150 gold earlier than usual, so that item is usually just going to be Sheen, which is what most people first buy on GP anyway, so you can back really fast. But the reason why I don't go with Futures Market and I like Magical Footwear is mainly because you actually get a lot of gold from Kleptomancy, from just straight up queuing the enemy a lot. I like starting Sapphire Crystal. I've played one game of Spell Thief's Edge, but I'm still on the edge about it. No pun intended, but I'm still on the edge on Spell Thief's Edge. So when you start with Sapphire Crystal, you need to back with 700 gold. Kleptomancy, if you keep queuing the enemy, it will give you 700 gold pretty darn fast. So that's why I don't really feel like you need Futures Market the extra 150 gold earlier. I feel like it's slightly overrated, but it is decently good. But just remember that the first lending fee isn't 50 gold the first time you take advantage of the debt limit. Otherwise, Magical Footwear, I've found that you get boots at 10 minutes, and it's slightly stronger boots. This is essentially like 300 gold in value that you get. But the difference is that if you're against a Trinity top lane and it's sub 10 minutes and you really need that Ninja Tabbies, you're not going to be able to purchase Ninja Tabbies that early. You're going to be able to purchase only like a Cloth Armor and sit on that and then wait to upgrade into a Ninja Tabbies. But I still really like Magical Footwear because I usually don't upgrade my boost as GP. What this not purchasing boots means, you can dedicate all your cash and money to building the components of a 10-minute Trinity Force, which is really fast. I think previously a really fast Trinity Force would be around 11 or 12 minutes if you started with Sapphire Crystal on average and you had a decent laning phase. Now with Kleptomancy you can hit Trinity Force at around, I think maybe sub 10 minutes, maybe around 9 minutes as well, which is really quite fast. And you not putting the 300 gold towards other items means you can naturally save that 300 gold and put it towards other damage items. And then for the last tree, for the last rune, the other two aren't really an option. You just have to take the 5% CDR. It just works well with GP. For the secondary rune page, I go sorcery. Typically, I think if you see GPs, they'll typically go inspiration and then secondary sorcery. But what we go in this page is Transcendence, which is 10% CDR when you reach level 10. This is really good. Works well with GP. Works well with crit GP. Works well with bruiser GP. It's quite nice. I only take this for the 10% CDR. Now I haven't done a lot of the math on this, but overcapping the CDR, I think if you're going, this is a build I've been thinking about. You can build Trinity Force, Ionian Boots early, and then you can build Infinity Edge 2 crit items. So Triforce, Boots, Infinity Edge 2 crit items, Last Whisper, and then you can sell the boots for an Essence Reaver. So that'll be your final build, and that all that extra CDR that you get from your 6th item after you sell your boots, it'll convert into 80, which is kind of nice. But I haven't tested out that build yet, but I plan on trying out that build next game. For the remainder of these, I feel like it's really down to you. So I feel like this is a must-have in this tree. But I've been going Scorch. The reason I go Scorch is because you're dominant in lane. Like pre-5 minutes, with just a Sapphire Crystal, if you know how to manipulate the wave, you can constantly just try your best to freeze the wave on your side and keep queuing the enemy, and you get Qs on Qs on Qs. It deals a lot of Scorch damage. And I think it's early game, it's okay. 30 extra damage every 20 seconds is kind of okay, but considering you're going to be queuing a lot, I feel like this works well. This is Water Walking. No, you're not going to be using this. Gathering Storm, I think it's garbage. I heard Tobias saying he thinks it's garbage too, yeah. And I agree with him. I think this is garbage just because you only get the 5 AD of Gathering Storm at 10 minutes. It's not like a scaling ability. And I know most people are going to look into it and be like, whoa, dude, look at that, 60 minutes, 101 AD. No, you're not going to get until that long in the game. But I can tell you this, the majority of my games that I play, which is around High Diamond, the majority of games end at 30 minutes. So sometimes it ends, a lot of games end at like 25 minutes. Somewhere between 25 and 35 minutes, that's where the majority of games end. So 25 to 35 minutes, only getting 14 AD and 29 AD is not actually that worth it for Gathering Storm. Because my games end a bit too fast. Maybe in lower ELOs, I guess, because I remember when I used to play with my Smurf account, the games go on for a lot longer, like 40 minutes. But I don't think you should really be relying on this rune right here, Gathering Storm, because it takes way too long to scale. Even though it's really, really attractive, like 60 minutes, 101 AD, like that is a bit silly, but your game is not going to go on till that long. Absolute Focus, while above 70% health. No. I'd say instead of going Absolute Focus, you can just go with Scorch. If you're thinking about going Absolute Focus, just go with Scorch instead. Like I said, Transcendence is absolute must. And, okay, here are two other options. Here, this comes down to who you're laning against. If you're against a Rumble top lane against an AP matchup, who can burst you. If you're playing GP mid, which I don't recommend, if you're playing GP mid, you can play, and you're against a LeBlanc, an Anivia, whatever, any burst type mages with magic damage, you can take Transcendence, and for the second one you can take Nullifying Orb. Which is, it's not a huge shield, but it's good against magic damage dealers. But, Mana Flow Band, I feel like this is unnecessary. At first I thought it was good. It seems like okay, like every 60 seconds you'd use your W on your orange heal. But that's not going to happen because you actually, you get a lot of mana pots with Kleptomancy. And you get Biscuit, if you're running Biscuit Delivery as well, you're also going to get mana back too. So this is not necessary to GP because you actually, surprisingly enough, I expected GP would have mana problems and that in this, because we don't have meditation anymore, right? We don't have meditation anymore, so we'd have mana problems and that we'd need to take Mana Flow Band. But GP actually doesn't need it because you get loads of mana from Kleptomancy and a bit from Biscuit Delivery. What I find myself doing is I usually, I'll talk about this later. So instead of so we're not taking mana flow band. Take this against AP opponents, and for ultimate hat, yeah, people say they like taking ultimate hat, but I don't think it's that good. So you get 5% cooldown reduction. When comparing it to Scorch, okay, we're comparing the ultimate hat to Scorch or Nullifying Orb. So you're going to be taking Nullifying Orb against AP burst. You're going to be taking Scorch usually, which is what I like taking. But this is the second option. I feel like the only two viable options here are, well, Scorch, Nullifying Orb, and the Ultimate Hat. Ultimate Hat only gives you 5% cooldown reduction. And then you gotta use your ultimate 5 times in order to scale it up to 10%. So typically you'd have 45% CDR on your ultimate. But this will give you potentially 55% CDR. And I don't feel it's necessary, just because you're not going to be using your ultimate that often. 5 times, that late into the game, your ultimate's already on a pretty low cooldown. 10% more with the ultimate hat is not really going to be worth it, in my opinion, compared to the lane pressure you get. This gives you a good amount of pressure in lane with the magic damage you get from Scorch. So taking the ultimate hat, no. Even at level rank 1, since the loss of TLD, GP's ultimate kind of sucks right now. GP's ultimate kind of sucks just because we don't have TLD in rank 1. GP ultimate sucks rank 1 when you hit level 6. You don't really have a level 6 power spike like other top laners. You kind of just... your ultimate's not that good anymore, which is why I don't like the ultimate hat as well, because we lost TLD, so your ultimate at rank 1 is not going to do a lot of damage. Rank 2 and rank 3, okay, but now it's not going to do much damage, and it's... Honestly, I think his ultimate needs a slight buff to it, because rank 1, it's irrelevant. These are the consumables you usually get. You get a lot of mana potions, I found. But essentially, if you don't have a slot for Kleptomancy, so it fills up your slots. If you don't have a slot open, it'll automatically activate whatever item is here. So control ward, it'll automatically, I think, place your it'll automatically place your control ward wherever your mouse cursor is. So it'll actually just place it on top of the enemy, which is quite useless. If you have all your slots filled up, all your 6 item slots filled up, it's just gonna randomly use blue trinket and pink ward, which is kind of annoying. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, every time you got a sly sack of gold, I remember that most people would in the PBE it used to be better to use the sly sack of gold every time you got it, you know, in your inventory, you would activate it. But now they've nerfed it. It says here grants between 40 and 110, but they nerfed it. It grants between 20 and 100. So it averages at about 60. It doesn't average at 75 anymore. It averages at 60. And it sells for 65. So if you want to make a 5 gold profit on average, it's just better to hold on to the sacks of gold and sell it there. So that's one thing you need to remember with Kleptomancy. It's an aggressive keystone as well. I know people think of it as passive, but you do get stats that give you attack damage as well in lane. Attack damage, you get an extra skill point if you're really lucky. It gives you a few elixirs, which are quite good. But typically what I find myself doing is if I can, I use my... Because I usually start the game with Sapphire Crystal and a refillable potion. What I find myself doing is I usually use up my refillable potion before I start using these items here from Kleptomancy. Because I'd rather just hold on to them and sell them when I get back to base. So yeah.